Accenture as a Magento technical architect. Well, besides that, it's linked to the whole e-commerce ecosystem, so integration with other systems. And by the way, this is not Piotr Siejczuk versus Magento, as one of my colleagues pointed. It's basically the single node, single database approach versus multiple databases, multiple servers approach. Okay, so also to give you some highlights about my background, my knowledge. I'm working with Magento for the last around 8 years, if I recall correctly, starting from Magento 1.3. That was ages ago still. Nowadays supporting both Magento 1 and Magento 2 projects, community and enterprise editions, whatever the customer basically requires. And today I would like to, well, briefly, because we have only like half an hour, right? So I'm not going to go into details, but briefly I would like to talk about the multi-node and multi-database topic, which is especially the multi-database part, split database or database sharding, whatever you call it. It's a Magento Enterprise, nowadays called Magento Commerce version. It's a feature of the Magento 2 Commerce edition. Okay, so I'm not going to start with nice things. I'll start with cons of both solutions. And in terms of Magento cluster node approach, what are the cons? It's for sure higher cost. And if you would like to basically replicate production environment into pre-prod, well, this cost factor is even higher. It's more complex to set up, and from like purely, let's say, technical development side of the things, the deployment on a multi-node cluster is a bit more complex than if it comes to a single node one. Nowadays, I've seen the Magento dev docs were updated. There are some descriptions, some solutions how a multi-node deployment can look like. And I know that Magento team is well working on that topic and basically extending that, and I think in the near future we'll see more detailed documentation about this kind of deployments. So if it comes to a single node Magento installation and approach, well, we have a single point of failure. Basically, one of our servers and the only server will go down. The whole e-commerce that we are running is basically not working, right? Furthermore, there's no scalability of such solution, so performance is degraded, end user feeling is basically, well, not as expected by the business teams. Well, it's also a security risk. Why? Because basically if one server is being hacked, well, all what we have is there, so yeah. An attacker is having basically knowledge of the whole data that we are possessing in our business. And well, the last thing, at least based on, let's say, my knowledge, my experience and projects that I'm supporting, there's no diversity of activities. And by that I mean there's no option to spread front-end activities from back-end activities, from API calls. And that's also linked with security. Let's say in most of the projects that we are supporting, there are some strict security policies. So, for example, backend servers, backend nodes should be divided from the front-end nodes. Access to those should be restricted. So, therefore, only, let's say, well, dedicated IPs or IP ranges can access those sites. That's something that, of course, can be done on a single node approach as well. But, well, in terms of hardware performance, basically it will split that. It gives us better options to scale the solution. So what are the pros of both options, so the multi-cluster node and the single node? As well, I briefly said before, the cluster node has scalability advantages, so basically the performance and user feeling is improved. what is more, the security factor, so that's something that I mentioned, is linked to the diversity of the activities. So yeah, that's in the projects that we are supporting. Our internal security teams are basically pointing that we cannot have backend nodes at the same servers as the front-end activities. Same for the API calls, those should be strictly restricted only to the systems that are using those API calls. And that's that's on the server side in terms of the configuration of Nginx, Apache, whatever you're using. But other than that, it's also linked to firewall rules on the servers. So basically, also on the firewall level, we have that communication restricted to the given IPs. In terms of a single node approach, well, it's easier to set up. It's just one machine, well, one per each environment. So if you have integration, staging / pre-production and production, well, it's 3 servers. In a multi-node approach, there's much more than that to set up. Of course, if you're using automated tools, it becomes much easier, but still, for a single node, it's just one machine or a couple of instances of that. And as I mentioned earlier, on a single node approach, the whole deployment process is much easier to achieve. There are no issues with, for example, static content, where it should be generated, if it's on one server or it should be generated on all the nodes. So that's something that I'll describe a bit more later on. So let's go next. So yeah, that's, let's say, based on I cannot give any names, but let's say based on my experience, my knowledge on the projects, this is how we are setting up the minimal multi-node cluster. So that's one front-end server, one back-end server, at least one database server, and server for Varnish and Redis services. What is more, in terms of the front-end and back-end servers, we have something we are calling internally like a health check. So if one of the nodes is not responding, we are using a load balancer approach. So if one of the nodes is not responding, then the whole traffic is being forwarded to the other one, which is working, and that gives continuously option to have the front end and back end activities working, and we have the time to pick up the issue and fix the problem with the server if there's any related to the server. Well, this is, as I said, this is a minimal setup. In some high available solutions that we are supporting, and that's a live project. We have 3 front-end nodes, 1 back-end node, and that's something that I'll describe a bit later as well. We have basically 3 database servers, 3 master database servers, and 3 slave database servers, and 2 which are working in a standby mode as well. And dedicated machines for Varnish, dedicated for Redis. And Varnish is actually working in a high availability mode, so we have actually 2 Varnish nodes, which are used, of course, for static content caching. Yeah, so I said that in one of the projects that we are running, we have 3 front-end, 1 back-end server. So how we came up with that, how we picked up it should be 3, not 2 or 4. So first of all, if you're setting up a project from the scratch, you need to gather business requirements, and I'm not talking about the functional needs. I'm talking about the numbers in terms of orders placed per hour or per minute, number of customers, what's the most important part of the business. So it's not necessarily always a single product that is being added to your cart. Sometimes in the projects that we are supporting, the business is requiring this subscription-like approach, so you can have repetitive orders which are consisting of a couple of products from different categories. And basically, if you will just run some load and performance tests on a single product page, add that to the cart and the process, you will not basically come up with the right numbers, because you will just cover part of the solution, which is not necessarily the case what business required. So the number of orders placed for a single order is like, for example, 5%. Out of the rest, the 95% is coming from the subscriptions. So if you will not put that as a testing scenario for your load and volume stress tests, you're gonna fail in terms of performance and basically describing, giving the right user experience for the customers. So that's why the second line is I wrote to use the power of your knowledge. So in most cases, I guess all of you are not making a first project now. So you need to take the knowledge from your previous projects, use it in the new one, and see what's the outcome of it. Execution of volume stresses and load tests, that's something that I mentioned. I know that our colleagues from Magento Core, maybe not Core, but from the ECG team, they're using that when it comes to the performance health check they are doing. That's something that if you're running a project, a business that has a lot of customers, a lot of orders being placed per minute, per hour, you need to use those to basically pinpoint the bottlenecks of your application. It can be application, it can be server side, it can be configuration of the solutions that you're using, like Redis, Varnish, or basically a mix of all of those. So of course, Varnish, Redis, or any performance-related solutions, they're okay, but you need to make sure that your application, your code of the application is working as expected, and you're following the best practices in terms of performance factor, right? So without running a volume stress test, you will not be able to see any performance degradation unless you're gonna go high with number of orders placed, number of customers visiting your site. And that's, I guess you are all doing this. You need to review if you're buying a solution that is existing on marketplace. Nowadays it's a bit better, because before your solution will end up in the marketplace, I'm talking here about Magento 2, right? You need to pass the internal check done by Magento team, which, according to my knowledge and some presentations that I attended, those performance factors are being checked, the quality of the code is being reviewed. I remember, I think from last Imagine, that there were some solutions at the very beginning of marketplace that were not passing the test because they were running correctly in developer mode, but suddenly when you are switching to a production mode, which obviously your solution should be running in production setup through the production mode. But the third-party extensions quite a lot of times were not passing those tests. They were just basically crashing in production mode. So whenever you are buying a third-party solution, typical thing, test it first on testing and pre-production environment, but also review it by yourself. I do trust in Magento, but it's better safe than sorry, so test it yourself, check it yourself from the quality of the solution. So some solutions supporting tools that we are using in our projects, which are linked to general setup, but also performance factor, security related areas, is the database sharding or database split, whatever you call it. Magento is calling it split database. In database and world, I think it's called database sharding. Doesn't really matter. But other than that, of course, as I guess all of you for session related and cache related areas, we are using Redis. It's of course not the only one existing solution, but that's what we are using. That's where our knowledge base is located. So, we are using whatever suits our needs the best and the customer needs the best. Varnish for acting as a CDN, so for the static content caching. And yeah, this nice tool introduced by Magento in Magento Commerce, which is the RabbitMQ feature, which allows to basically have some cron jobs, some tasks being well processed in asynchronous mode, which is something that in the project that I'm supporting we are using pretty heavily. We moved few even of the core indexers to that one. Well, basically that's again related to performance. Some operations were taking too long, some runs were overlapping, they weren't finished correctly. So when we moved all of that to RabbitMQ, suddenly the problem is gone. The process is running in the background. Right now it's nice and smooth, no bottlenecks there. The queues are being emptied quite fast. So yeah, well, just advantages. Plus, well, I think I'm just a performance freak, but that's why I placed New Relic monitoring over here. I know that also Magento ECG team and the engineers there and system administrators are using it to review the performance of your application. So I guess, well, I do hope that at least some of you know this solution. If not, well, I didn't prepare any detailed slides about it, but it basically allows you to monitor your application 24/7. Well, set up alerts, see spikes in terms of the usage of your application on the code level, on the database level. There are some extra plugins where you can basically see details of database-related operations, Redis-related operations, cache hit rate, and so on and so forth. And the last, but not the least, web application firewall, which is linked to one of the presentations that was handled here before, so security of your application. Well, that's of course linked to the business needs and the security standards of the project that you're running, but in quite a lot of projects that we are supporting, the business is requiring web application firewall, so yet another level of security for your application. Well, there are some typical attack vectors, right, that normally should be handled by application, fine. That's something mostly on a development level, which should be managed and well, overseen by the project managers. But other than that, there are those web application firewall solutions that will block and well, stop attackers in terms of the most frequent attack vectors, like DDoS attacks or cross-site scripting. Depending on the solution that you're using, it can have different options. Oh, yeah. One of the factors that I mentioned is about deployment. So in a multi-node environment, when you have multiple servers, we were, well, testing, having few options, few solutions from the beginning of the project before it went live till the moment it went live. We were basically improving the process of deployments, starting from, well, really bad idea. We were basically generating static content on all the nodes that we were having, which, well, it's working, but in terms of a time factor, it's not the optimal solution. So, for example, how we are doing it now is that we are basically doing the whole setup upgrade and static content deploy and all the steps on one of the nodes, which is an admin node, and then we are doing a distribution of the packages across all the other servers, which is, well, at least in our setup, for us it works the best. It's not any close to zero-time deployment, and this is something that I know it has been introduced in Magento 2.2. Maybe Ben can correct me about that, but I think it's also linked to the pipeline deployment, which was described for the cloud options. So you can get almost to a zero-time deployment situation, which, of course, if you're running a global business that should be online 24/7, well, that's where you would like to get. If you are okay to have some short, let's say, downtime, basically running a maintenance mode where you can do the deployment, that's fine. You can basically do that. But yeah, I'm looking forward into this one. I'm not running the newest version in my project. I'm not running the newest version of Magento. Long story, long project, high customized project. So we'll get there. Well, first of all, we need to fix the issues that are on daily basis, and at some point we'll do the upgrade to the newer version, and we'll use the improvements coming with Magento 2.2. Oh, well, another thing which is also linked to deployments and some performance-related areas. So, well, within the time of the project, we are running a few options like using the JS bundling feature, which in the end we made working. We had some issues with it, but yeah, I guess it's it's a topic that can be discussed in our project due to the fact that we have quite a lot of JavaScripts involved. When we bundled all of them, it was around 8 megabytes of JavaScript. Well, fine, if it's cached, well, yeah, it's loading pretty fast. But the first time when the user is getting to the page, unless you're not gonna do some preheating of your site, well, it's gonna end up with quite a long time of loading the JavaScript bundled assets. So after some tests, in the end, right now, we decided to disable the JS bundling. We, of course, stayed still with CSS and JavaScript merge and unification. Plus, and well, one of the reasons why we also decided to disable JS bundling is the fact that we have an option to enable HTTP2 on our solution, and well, in short, it basically allows you to load the CSS and JavaScript assets in parallel. So it's not like waterfall loading, but yeah, it's doing it at the very same time. So well, after some tests, we came up with the fact that well, it's better for us to disable JS bundling and yeah, have the HTTP2 enabled. I guess the JS bundling thing and the feature is something that well, will be improved and extended in the next versions of Magento. Well, right now, if you don't know how it's working, it's basically getting the old JavaScript that you have in your project, and yeah, it doesn't matter if it's used on this particular page that you're viewing. It will basically get the whole JavaScript and load it at the same time on one page. And well, for us it wasn't working. I guess, well, that's at least my idea, and maybe Ben is listening. So yeah, my idea, and I did see some comments in the community, is that, well, it should be something like on a configuration level that you can pick up what should be bundled on which pages, at least on the, let's say, the generic pages, like, you know, product detail pages, category pages, and so on and so forth. But, you know, that's just my idea. I'm saying it's the right way to go. Okay, now the second part of, let's say, the presentation, the database split. And, well, I don't have the exact numbers, but as far as I can tell, based on some of my internal contacts in Magento, it's not something that is used a lot in projects that are in production mode. So I've seen Ben nodded, it's true, right? Yeah, but anyway, we made it working. We had some issues with it. And, well, of course, you can always say it's custom code. Well, it wasn't. When we did enable it, we found some issues. So a few of those support tickets that I created were linked to database sharding. Now it's all good, it's working fine. What it gives to you, well, we can, the whole idea, well, this is of course, this diagram is coming from Magento side. Maybe you've seen it. If you don't, well, in Enterprise Edition, in Commerce Edition, you can have the split database, so it allows you to divide the OMS, order management part, checkout part, and the whole rest of the database into 3 different nodes. You can do it, I mean, you can have 3 of them. You can, let's say, decide that you would like to have checkout and OMS on one database, the other one on the second server. What we decided, we decided with the 3 server setup. So we have 3 master databases, and well, behind that 3 slave databases. And some numbers. I'm not sure if those are still correct. I haven't run recently any new setup for like a clean version of Magento, but at the very beginning, the main database was having like 250 tables. The quote/checkout database was containing 10 of them, and the sales/order management part was 54 databases. Well, e-commerce. This is something which is coming from out of the box. In the project that we are supporting, those numbers are different. We have some external solutions, features required by business, so those numbers are not the same anymore. We have some extra tables in content, some extra one in OMS database. So yeah, it sounds and it looks fine on the paper. Well, there are some issues with that. And well, issues and some things that you need to take in consideration and basically keep an eye when you're doing a development. So, well, basically I made the pros and cons, and yeah, the code quality discipline is something which I placed in two columns. Why? Basically, you need to have the right code to support the split database. If you will start to put some foreign keys and joins between those areas of the application, well, the split database solution will not work. So at one side, it means that you need to keep your code quality on the right level, which, well, I was a developer back in the days. I know sometimes people are lazy and doing quick wins, quick solutions. So sometimes people are just forgetting to have this in mind, and then the code they are having is not supporting this kind of solution in the right way. Basically, it will start to throw some exceptions, some database connection errors, and so on. So what are the process of database split? Of course, it's the performance. You have the content part divided from the order management part from checkout. Now, if you have a lot of people just browsing the site, it will hit the content database because all the category product-related data is there. But then you're switching, continuing the process of ordering. Then you're getting to the checkout database. So the load from the content one is going to the checkout. Then you're finishing it's landing in the OMS table. Like all the backend-related operations, the order grid operations, those are hitting the OMS database. So, you can have your system administrators to look at the performance of each of them, and well, that allows you to give the right level of customer experience to the end user. High availability. So basically, in the setup that I'm supporting in my project, we have also the slave databases, which are being replicated on the fly. Well, that's being done in asynchronous mode, but other than that, the data is consistent, right? So if for any reason your master database will go down, the slave databases can be even put in place of the master one that just stopped working, right? That's the second point. You cannot use joins between the tables. Well, they are all on different servers, so unless you know the way how to write a MySQL join which will do a connect to another server on the fly, besides security things, well, yeah, this is not working, and if you have some complex reports, you need to basically split them to some smaller parts and basically do some merging of the outcome of single reports later on. You won't be able to get the data in one single SQL. Yeah, the last point is about using foreign keys between the tables, and that's if it comes to basically select operations. Well, either on the simple SQL level or in your code of the application. So yeah, that's something that you need to take care. Otherwise, well, the solution will not work, and you will start to get some exceptions in your logs, or in the worst case scenario, even exceptions that will hit the end user, so they will start to see some red flags on the front end of your site. Okay, so that would be it. I'm not sure what's the time, maybe I was too fast, but any questions, comments?
Did you try to approach the goal of having a multi-master topology for a single database? I mean, having master-master, but for a single database, not having generally a group of masters which are not connected to each other?
Well, yeah, you know, right now this project is the one that this is based on, it's live, but you know, within the whole development phase, we are using different approaches. Also, if it comes to the database setup, if we are gonna stay like this with the multi-node, well, it's also hard to say. We'll need to see. This project is live for a while. So far, this approach is working fine. But you know, at some point there will be more marketing campaigns coming, bigger movement in terms of orders placed and so on. So we'll have to review if this solution is still suitable for our needs. And yeah, basically we were trying some other options like master-master setup. For us, the one that I just described is the one that worked the best.
So you're not using master-master in general?
No. I mean, well, not in the project that I'm currently supporting. Okay. So,
what tool do you use for continuous delivery?
we are using Jenkins. And yeah, basically, in Jenkins, besides deployment-related operations, we have some other jobs and tasks linked, like even simple things like setting the site in maintenance mode, or another issue that we faced. We need to run some full reindex of some particular indexes. A topic that I'm fighting with support team for quite a while. One of the indexers is not, let's say, still working correctly. So for that, we basically had to put the site in maintenance mode, run the whole reindexation, and put the site back online. So yeah, we have like a couple of typical operations that we're running. Well, we are from IT, we're lazy, so most of the things that could be automated, we already did that. So yeah, the maintenance mode, database backups, and so on. That's just a few of the things that we put in Jenkins. Besides that, we also have, because I had a short discussion with my colleague about where the hell we are putting some settings linked to particular environment, right? So obviously, payment gateways information, that's something that you shouldn't put in your code, right? You shouldn't put in your Git. So for that, we are using the Chef automated tool. So that's basically isolated from outside world, and all the configurations per environment, so integration staging or pre-prod and prod, but those are linked there. So whenever someone is messing around with the core settings, we can always just start one of the jobs in Chef and redeploy the generic settings that are confirmed to be working. So yeah, if someone is, I don't know, for any reason is going to change the payment gateway settings, and we'll see that that's not working. We just press one button in the chef, and it will redeploy the correct settings across the nodes. Yeah. Any other questions? If no, then thank you very much for your time.